This episode is brought to you by the NBA. From the squeak of shoes on the hardwood to the tips of their fingers, it's a mesmerizing dance of jaw-dropping dunks, heartbreaking blocks, and mind-blowing steals. It's the most fantastic athletes in the world who make your heart beat out of your chest and make you want to jump into the screen and be right on the court with them. That's the NBA. That's game. Don't miss the NBA playoffs going on now.
For the big storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Tuesday, April 27th. As promised, we've got a 2-mini break Tuesday for all of you listeners. On this episode, I want to recap all of the action that happened this past weekend on the ATP and WTA tours. It was a 12th title for Rafael Nadal in Barcelona. He looked fantastic in an exceptional 3-set final against Stefanos Tsitsipas. Of course, Ashley Barty was able to capture another title here in 2021. She ends up in the winner's circle in Stuttgart. I want to talk about her performance. Aryna Sabalenka making a final. I'm going to continue to make the case, folks, for Aryna Sabalenka to win a Grand Slam, if not this season, at some point in the next 3 seasons. The numbers say it, the results say it. Certainly her week in Stuttgart, there were moments when she looked untouchable. I have to touch on that. Of course, at the 250 level, Sorana Cîrstea wins her first WTA title in 13 years. Matteo Berrettini back in the winner's circle for the 4th time in his career in Belgrade. Of course, last but certainly not least, we had another challenger title from Jenson Brooksby. And Jenson, friend of the program here at Cracked Racquets, so I have to talk about his continued success because at this point, it's undeniable, folks. He is on his way to the top 100, and certainly his performance in Tallahassee showed us why he has had so much success here at the start of 2021. But again, those events going to be the focus of this first podcast. On part 2, I'm going to talk about the week we have this week. At the start, we've got a couple of ATP events as the week goes on. The WTA action going to pick up, and I feel like that's a nice break for us tennis fans. We needed a staggered start. We needed an easy Monday, easy Tuesday to ease our way into another fantastic week of tennis across the professional tennis world. Of course, there's also some fantastic college tennis going on. We here at Cracked Racquets so excited to be hosting a Level 1 USTA Junior National event starting this Saturday and going through the middle of next week. I believe the GOAT, Colette Lewis, is going to be coming down to Indianapolis to cover the event. I am certainly excited to get the chance to speak with her in person. I am sure we're going to have her on the podcast at some point during the event. So just a sneak peek of what's ahead for all of you listeners. I also, at the top of today's podcast, have to talk about a professional experience I had this weekend that would not have happened without the endless support we received from all of you Cracked Racquets listeners, from our Patreon family. Of course, the opportunity I'm discussing is the fact that I got to appear on Tennis Channel Live, the Tennis Channel National, I suppose, TV broadcast. It was my first appearance on national TV. It was a whole bunch of fun, and of course I have to talk about that. I suppose thank some people who helped make that happen. So that's the agenda here on part 1 of the podcast. Talk about that experience, recap all of the championship weekend action, and then later on in the day on our second episode, you'll hear more about the week ahead. Of course, the reason we're able to do all of this, I should say, day in, day out here at Cracked Racquets, as I mentioned, is because of the endless support we get from all of you listeners, the support we get from our Cracked Racquets Patreon family, and of course because of the support we get from our friends at Midwest Sports. It's now officially outdoor tennis season, and if you haven't upgraded your equipment, you need to maybe tighten your strings by a pound or two, maybe loosen them depending on what part of the country you are in. Rest assured, any advice you need, any gear you need about what you should be doing this spring, this summer, you can receive from our friends at Midwest Sports. You go to MidwestSports.com. Not only will you have the chance to interact with the kindest, I would say most knowledgeable staff in the business, you'll also have the opportunity to find the best gear at the best prices. You use our promo code CR15, you'll get 15% off your order. free 2-day shipping on all orders exceeding $75, and best of all, a free can of Wilson Extra Duty tennis balls. Again, MidwestSports.com. That promo code is CR15, which will let them know we sent you there as well. We are so grateful for the continued support from our friends at Midwest Sports. The least we can do, ask you to support them as well. So, MidwestSports.com. The promo code is CR15. With that in mind, let me just talk quickly about my Tennis Channel Live appearance. A huge shout out to Cracked Racquets CEO Dalton Thieneman, who sometimes I take some unnecessary shots at here on the podcast. It's all in good fun. You guys know that's the way I show affection to the people that I love, but sincerely, that opportunity would not have arisen without his endless work behind the scenes. I suppose it's good news for all of us here at Cracked Racquets because we want to sustain this enterprise moving forward, that I have taken the podcast hosting responsibilities away from him, that now he does operate behind the scenes, but there is no one you want in your corner fighting for you more than Dalton Thieneman. So a huge shout out to him for helping to make that happen. A huge shout out to all the people at Tennis Channel who were willing to have me on the show. Obviously, I got the chance to interact with Noah Eagle, the host for Tennis Channel Live, or I should say one of the hosts for Tennis Channel Live, who is a professional's professional, and it was fun excuse me, to get the chance to go behind the scenes, to see how it all operates, to be on a broadcast, to see them, transition from segment to segment, to see them prepare for commercial breaks, the transitions in and out. It was a learning experience, and then it was the thrill of a lifetime. And you Cracked Racquets fans are too accustomed to hearing me discuss my club tennis days. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to say this, and it's a thought I think you will all be familiar with, is that I love to compete. I always have. The thrill of playing those tennis matches is a thrill I will continue to chase throughout the rest of my life. That adrenaline rush, that thought of, okay, there's something on the line here. And for me, that's why I always liked playing tennis in a team's fashion. Obviously, I played a lot of, I don't know why I say obviously, it's not like my career is public. I played a lot of doubles, but also I played, whether it was for my high school team or my club tennis team in Michigan. The key word there is team. I got the opportunity to play tennis in the team format. That's why I fell in love with it. All of that is to say, that was a bit of a tangent there. I was like, what was my point? My point is, that was the thrill for me. That's why I fell in love with tennis, is getting the chance to compete, to have that opportunity to win, not just for yourself, but for others as well. And the reason I brought up Dalton at the start is going on Tennis Channel Live. It wasn't just for me. It was for all of the work Dalton does, all of the work super producer Daniel Westoff does. There's a reason I give him a shout out at the end of every show. None of this stuff happens without the tireless work he puts in behind the scenes and puts up with all of my nonsense. I've mentioned this fact before. Imagine editing my voice all day, seeing my face on video all day, seeing my face on your big computer screen that you're using to edit all day, and then walking out of your room and realizing that I live across the hall as your roommate, and he puts up with my nonsense day in, day out. The jokes that don't make it onto the podcast, and I know I say a lot of unfunny ones, but the ones that are truly too unfunny or too vile to be said publicly, he's the recipient of most of them, and there's no one who's quicker to say, Alex, that's not going to work, and he says it in a loving way. Again, he has my back. I have his. Shout out to Westoff. Shout out to Jamie McDonald. I'm not going to give the full rant on Jamie like I did Dalton and Westoff, because if I do, this podcast will go 3 hours. I will say he knows how valuable he is to me. Everything I said about Westoff and Dalton applies to him, probably a little bit more so because, I don't live with him. I don't see him as much, so sometimes he gets a little bit more animosity perhaps than the other two, and he says, Alex, shut up. Like, he just puts up with it. He never takes it personally. Again, that's the sort of people you want to work with, the team we have here at Cracked Racquets. And obviously it was a thrill for me to get to text my grandmothers, my mom, I think every Gruskin or Merkel, which is my mom's maiden name, that still exists, tuned into Tennis Channel on Sunday afternoon. But yeah, to get the chance to talk about Rafa, to get the chance to talk about Ashley Barty, to get the chance to be myself and introduce our Cracked Racquets brand to a broader audience, that was the opportunity of a lifetime. And I felt that adrenaline rush again because it felt like I was doing it for Dalton, for Jamie, for Westoff. And it was awesome. And of course, I don't get that opportunity without all of you continuing to tune into the podcast, driving the numbers. Obviously, we're part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. They see those numbers. It's part of the reason why they were willing to have us on. So all I can ask is that you continue to listen, continue to subscribe, continue to engage with what we're doing here at Cracked Rackets. I'm so grateful for it because it has afforded me the opportunity to do something I dreamed about, and I've said it before. This podcast was founded on my couch in my college apartment as a senior when I was trying to figure out how am I going to keep tennis in my life moving forward, because I really didn't want to have to feed balls to be able to get my tennis fix. And because of you, the listeners, I've been able to get my tennis fix and then some. So immensely grateful for all of you. What an opportunity it was. Thank you to Noah. Thank you to all of the producers. Again, everyone at Tennis Channel who helped to make it possible. It was awesome. And it was really fun to be there on Sunday because I had the opportunity to talk about some really cool matches. And with that in mind, that, folks, was a Noah Eagle segue into our topics for today's podcast. And let's start a little bit of a flipping of the script with the action in Barcelona. Because, folks, Rafael Nadal is now 66-4 in his career in this Barcelona event. He wins his 12th title at the event. The crazy thing is Rafa has now won 12 titles at multiple events, right? And, of course, they are all on clay. And he continues to solidify his – it's not even a case anymore, just his place. Not his case, his place as the greatest clay court player in men's tennis history. And, look, I mean – for Rafael Nadal, who was tested early in this event, right? You look at the way he was able to rip through it. 3 sets against Ivashka. He objectively just wasn't playing well in the match. He didn't have a rhythm, and he was able to hold serve. He was able to win a lot of points on his first serve, but Ivashka was able to attack his second serve, and then Ivashka was able to attack his return because Rafa's returns were sitting short early in the week in the court, and then that second set Nishikori played in the round of 16 where he was just taking everything Nadal hit early down the line, beating Nadal to the spot. You just aren't accustomed to seeing Rafa look that vulnerable on a clay court, but as the week got on, it got better and better for him. And, Cam Norrie in the quarterfinals, that was a good opponent because to beat Nadal, and it was funny, I was asked this question on Tennis Channel Live, what do you do to beat Rafael Nadal? If I had the answer to that, I would not be hosting a podcast. I would probably be the wealthiest and most infamous man in tennis, because if you had the answer for how to beat Rafael Nadal on clay, you're probably qualified to be the best coach in professional tennis. You should probably be coaching Djokovic, Nadal, Halep, Serena, whomever it may be. If you can have that answer, what other answers can you solve? But there absolutely is some truth to you have to be decisive. You have to have the big weapon, or you have to be Novak Djokovic, which of course you can't ask anyone else to be because there's only one Novak Djokovic. But, in Monte Carlo, what did Andrei Rublev do to win that 3-set match against Nadal? He was aggressive. He looked for his opportunities to play +1 tennis. When Nadal left the ball short, there was no hesitation. Rublev said, all right, it's forehand time. And thankfully, Andrei Rublev's the sort of guy, I don't know why I'm thankful for it, but thankfully for him, that's always Rublev's mindset, not just against Nadal, but that's why he was well-suited to win that match, because he played aggressive. He was absolutely decisive in looking to take it to Nadal. Nishikori was able to do that. Ivashka was able to do that a little bit, but of course Nadal just really didn't have his rhythm in this match. But Cam Norrie was a good opponent for Nadal because that's not Cam Norrie's game. He wants to work the point. He wants to move you around the court, open up space for himself before beating you to the spot, before not necessarily, overwhelming you with pace. And I mean, good luck overwhelming Rafa physically on a clay court. Good luck moving him around the court. You offer him a split second, he gets into those patterns, inside out, inside in forehand, or backhand cross court, backhand down the line to try and bait you into hitting to his forehand. And of course for Rafa, he's gotten more decisive as well. He's gotten more effective on serve as his career's gone on, and I think that manifested itself a lot in that Carreño Bustos semifinal when it was a 3-2 victory for Nadal. He made 63% of his first serves, won 77% of the points on his first serve, saved 3 of the 4 break points he faced. He was able to convert, I believe, on 4 of his 10 break point chances, wins 2/3 of his second serve points, return points, and 49% of his return points in general. That's a vintage Rafael Nadal. And before I even get into the final, because I want to use that as well as a segue into talking more about Stefanos Tsitsipas, you look for Rafael Nadal. For his career, he has an 85.9 hold percentage in this 2021 season, and I really want to extend over 2020 and 2021 because he's only played 13 matches here in 2021, but he has a career hold percentage of 85.9%. Since the start of 2021, he's at 87.3%. He has a career break percentage, how frequently he's breaking serve, of 33.5%. By the way, that's top 3 in ATP Tour history. Since the start of 2020, he's at 35.1%. So his hold percentage and his break percentage since the start of 2020 are better than they were throughout the course of his career. And are they his prime numbers? No. You look back to that 2010 season when he went 71-10, he held serve 90.1% of the time. Now his break percentage was only 29.3, but it can afford to be a little bit lower when you're holding 90% of the time. But that was a different Rafa. That was a different beast. You can just see, those numbers manifest themselves. That's why he's been able to sustain this level of play for so long, because he's just become more efficient. And against Tsitsipas, that was the name of the game. For Rafa in the match, he saves 11 of the 13 break points he faced on multiple occasions. First set, he's down a break for the majority of the set, right? Didn't get the break back until 4-all, and then from there kind of ran away with the set. I believe won 4 straight games to close it out after being down 4-2, but then was down a break in that third set as well and was able to quickly get it back. And just for Rafa, we've said it all before, and this is why we don't talk Big Three that often on these shows, because what am I going to tell you listeners that you don't already know? But it's very clear, and it's become sort of a joke, right? Complimenting Rafa, oh, he's an underrated volleyer. He's become so underrated, he may even be overrated, but then again, Rafael Nadal's not overrated at anything he does on a tennis court. He's so much more effective now at picking his spots to move forward, at understanding, oh my God, my forehand yanked him off the court, the heaviness of my ball, he's going to be lucky to get that ball back over the net, let alone put it with depth or pace anywhere. If I just move forward to the net, I'm going to take so much time away. All I have to do is make the volley to win the point. It's just those little things, or, in this match, just not being afraid to hit to the Tsitsipas forehand and just, keeping Tsitsipas on the move more than anything else, because if you give Tsitsipas time to sit in the center of the court with how decisively Tsitsipas is playing right now, with how aggressively he's hitting his forehand and looking to move forward, it makes sense, that Rafa was able to come back and make the match physical. And again, you'd think on a clay court with the heavy topspin of the Rafa forehand that it would overwhelm the one-handed backhand of Stefanos Tsitsipas. That was not the case in the slightest. Tsitsipas was excellent in this match, and to be honest, the match was on his racket. And you look for Tsitsipas, the flip sides, his stats from the match, he makes 62% of his first serves wins, 74% of his first serve points. When he was able to play +1 tennis, be the aggressor, he was able to hit through Rafa. And that's a development, folks. Do you know how hard it is to hit through Rafa at any point, let alone on a clay court? When Tsitsipas was connecting cleanly with his +1 forehand, or working that, inside out, inside in forehand combo himself, or just even in this match, comfortably hitting through his backhand cross court, using the topspin of Rafa's forehand and taking the ball early on the rise and just driving through it. That's the sort of strength he has now as an athlete. The problem for him was, when Rafa could get him stretched on that second serve, he only won 43.5% of the second serve points. He had 1 million break point chances and wasn't able to convert them. There are a couple of volleys and a couple of inside-in forehands he yanked that he's going to want back, but he was constantly, again, going for his chances, playing to win. I can't fault Tsitsipas at all for his effort, and you look for Tsitsipas, who, again, won, 14 4 plus 5 is 9, 18 18 minus the 1 retirement. So 17 straight sets on clay heading into this final in Barcelona, and really should have won that first set and probably won this match in straight sets and put himself in a position to win all 3 of these sets. Fought off a couple of match points in the third as well, was able to extend it to 5-all, and just, again, you look for Stefanos Tsitsipas, the numbers speak for themselves. He's 42-15 in his last 52 weeks since 2019. Stefanos Tsitsipas 108-45 overall. He's now 35-9 on clay courts since 2019, and I mentioned this a little bit last week. Those losses have now come twice to Rafa, twice to Djokovic, once to Rublev, once to Sinner, once to Medvedev, once to Wawrinka, and then Struff as well. All of the losses not to Novak or to Rafa were in 3 sets. So, A, you have to be either Rafa or Novak to beat him on clay, or B, expect a 3-set match. That's how good he's been on clay. And again, I have the numbers here to compare his hard court and clay court performances. His serve is equally effective on the 2 surfaces since 2019, I should say. Now, his hold percentage drops 3.5%, but you look at the numbers, they're pretty stable. His first serve percentage equal on the 2 surfaces, so there's no outlier there. He wins 76.3% of his first serves versus 72.7% on clay courts. The first split is hard versus clay. Second serves, he wins 55% on hard, 53.8% on clay. Hold percentage, 87% on hard, 83.5% on clay. He's winning 68.6% of his service points on hard, 65.9% on clay. Here's where the big jump comes, though. His break percentage goes from 21.7 to 29.6. That means he goes from being a 37th ranked returner in the ATP top 50 to being a top 15 guy. He goes from being, again, someone who can have his backhand attacked by pace to someone who has time now to run around that ball, hit a forehand, be the aggressor in his return games as well. And when he plays on his front foot, he is as good as any player in the tennis world. You look at Tennis Abstract's ELO ratings right now. Stefanos Tsitsipas, number 4, I want to say, overall right now, behind just Medvedev, Djokovic, and Rafa. You look on clay courts, Tsitsipas number 3 now, behind just behind just Nadal and Dominic Thiem. You look here in 2021, Stefanos Tsitsipas at 25-6 is your number 1 player by Tennis Abstract's ELO rating, again, based on just 2021 results, and it makes sense. He's tied with Andrei Rublev. They're both 25-6, but Tsitsipas has now beaten Rublev. He's won a clay court title here in Monte Carlo, makes a final in Barcelona, quarterfinal in Miami, semifinals at both the French Open and the Australian Open. He's been that good of late. He is unequivocally one of the 5 best players in tennis. He is a threat, not just to do well, make the second week, make us run to the quarterfinals or semifinals. He could very well win the French Open, folks. I talk about that list of players all the time. Who are the list of guys in the top 16 and women in the top 16 in both hold percentage and break percentage, because usually that list is only 5 or 6 players, and those are the players who have had the best results on tour over the past 52 weeks. Tsitsipas does not qualify for that list because there's a little bit of noise for him early in that last 52 weeks, but in 2021, he would qualify for that list. There's a reason he has gone from being, top 10. I mean, the truth is he's been this guy now for 52 weeks. The numbers speak for themselves. 45-11 is absolutely ridiculous. Stefanos Tsitsipas in wins over, and I mean, it was a gauntlet these past 2 weeks. He's earned wins over Karatsev, Garin, Rublev, Munar, de Minaur, FAA, Sinner, all of those players, but Munar's a top 20 guy in clay court ELO, but all of the other guys, top 20 players overall in ELO rating. That's how good Stefanos Tsitsipas has been over these past 2 weeks. He can win the French Open. Of course, the guy he's going to have to go through is Rafael Nadal, who's now 25-6 since the tour resumed in August. His 6 losses, Rublev, Tsitsipas, Medvedev, Thiem, Zverev, and then that match to Schwartzman in Rome, which of course he avenged in Roland Garros when he beat Schwartzman in straight sets in the semifinal. But I mean, those two guys set the standard. They are the two best players right now in the world on clay, and that conversation includes Novak Djokovic, who we haven't seen Dominic Thiem, who's still injured, which is why Tsitsipas, in my opinion, is the next best guy right now on clay. And we'll talk about Djokovic in in Belgrade momentarily, but again, those two guys, Nadal, he earned that title. He is the front runner entering the French Open. My next favorite until we see Thiem play is Stefanos Tsitsipas. He has been that good. Of course, they weren't the only guys to excel in Barcelona. I mentioned Sinner, who reaches the semifinal here, and for him to reach another semifinal at the Masters level, you look now for Jannik Sinner over his last 52 weeks. He's 34-14, and of course that includes the final in Miami just a few weeks ago. He now here beats RBA. He beats a worn-down Andrei Rublev, but he still beats Andrei Rublev before bowing out to Tsitsipas. He was a quarterfinalist at last year's French Open, and you look at just this sample size for him on clay now. Made the round of 16 in Rome last year before losing in 3 to Dimitrov. Actually beat Tsitsipas during that run at the French Open. He beats Goffin. He beats Zverev before losing to Rafa, and honestly played Rafa about as close as anyone did at last year's French Open in the quarterfinals. It's a small sample size, but you look for him now in his career in ATP Tour level matches on clay courts. Jannik Sinner 14-9 overall, but you look at him, 2020, 2021, he was 7-3 last year, 4-2 now to start his year here. That win over RBA was really impressive. His 2 losses to Tsitsipas and Djokovic, that is a gauntlet of, a schedule thus far, but his ground strokes just work. His ball explodes through any court. The surface doesn't matter. He plays on his front foot. He's a comfortable mover on the surface as well. His backhand was more dynamic than Andrei Rublev's, and his forehand could match him stroke for stroke. And it's just, it's crazy because Sinner's still only 19 years old, and he gets better legitimately in every match he plays. So a great week for him. Another great week for Carreno Busta, who's now 27-12 since the tour resumed in August, and clearly the 29-year-old is in the prime of his career. He's now won, you look over these past couple of seasons, his steady progression, in 2017 for Pablo Carreno Busta, he ends up winning 58% of his matches, 36-26. The next year, 2018, 31-22, 58% again. The next year, 30-22, 58% again. But now you look over these past, 2 seasons. He was 20-12 last year. He's 13-5 to start this season. He's won 69% of his matches over these last 52 weeks, and that includes, the run to the U.S. Open semifinal where he beats Shapovalov. Of course, he was the recipient of the Djokovic incident, but probably should have beaten Zverev, but ultimately couldn't in that semifinal. And, despite a loss like that, he bounces back and, makes the quarterfinals of Roland Garros, beats everyone he should beat, including a very good win over Roberto Bautista Agut before bowing out to Djokovic in 4 sets. He wins Marbella a few weeks ago, lost in 3 to Casper Ruud in Monte Carlo the next week, but, here 3 straight weeks of play, Marbella, Monte Carlo, Barcelona. He comes back from a 5-2 deficit in the quarterfinals to knock off Diego Schwartzman. Carreno Busta is playing the best tennis of his career, and again, it's because he's so much more decisive now on his return of serve, and of course on these clay courts. You look at his splits in his career between hard court and clay. His break percentage, he's another guy. It jumps by, now it's not quite a Tsitsipas jump, but it jumps by 4% from 22% to 26%. Again, that is a noticeable jump. And why is it able to do that? The numbers match the eye test. On these clay courts, he has that additional second to run around that ball, to hit his forehand, to hit the big drive on his return. You look for him, again, that win over Schwartzman, he was just the more physical player down the stretch, more decisive, and he beats the guys he should beat in Zapata Morales and Jordan Thompson. And now, again, it hasn't been the toughest strength of schedule for him that Schwartzman wins over Schwartzman and Munar. He's also got a win over Khachanov, but outside of that, all players outside of the top 50. He lost to Ruud, 3-set match, played Schwartzman, 3-set match. Both of those guys, 2 of the 15 to 10 best clay court players in the world, and he's playing them to 3 sets, and then, obviously he bows out to Rafa, but he I would be surprised if he doesn't make the round of 16, and it should shock no one if he's quarterfinals, maybe even further, because we've seen him do it before at this year's French Open. But again, those were your weekend matches. I talked about it last week, but the quarterfinalists, Norrie, FAA, Rublev, Schwartzman, they were all fantastic this week as well. And overall, it was a really, really fun 500 level event in Barcelona. It feels good to have Rafa back in the winner's circle on a red clay court. It just feels like all is right in the tennis world. Who's your trusted source when it comes to your facility questions, concerns, and needs? Ours is Hard True, the world's largest manufacturer of tennis court surfaces, equipment, and accessories for over 90 years. Partner with their trusted team of experts, along with collegiate greats Jamie Loeb, Alex Rybakov, and Dustin Taylor, to bring the surface provider of over 30 professional events annually to your facility. Whether it's the red clay of the Houston ATP, the green clay courts of the Charleston WTA, or the official hard court of World Team Tennis, Hard True has you covered. If you're looking to build a court, convert a hard court to clay, or simply resurface your hard court, work together with Hard True in their mission to lead the tennis industry by creating better places to play. To learn more about their state-of-the-art surfaces, along with their catalog customizable on-court accessories, check out hardtrue.com or call 877-442-7878 today. That's hardtrue.com or 877-442-7878 today. Let's move on now to the ATP action in Belgrade. I'm not going to spend as long on this event as I did in Barcelona, but it was certainly exciting to watch Matteo Berrettini, Aslan Karatsev, Novak Djokovic, and I do want to give a shout out to Taro Daniel as well, compete this weekend in Belgrade. Probably without, it was a 7-6 in the third final, Berrettini over Karatsev, but we probably have to start with that Karatsev-Djokovic semifinal. What an outstanding match. And look, Djokovic had break leads over Karatsev, I believe, in both the first and second sets, and 2-all in the third, had a bunch of breakpoint chances on Karatsev to take a 3-2 lead, ends up getting broken in that next service game. Funny how frequently that happens, but this was just physical, tennis at its finest, and this was also an exceptional contrast of styles because, of course, Karatsev, he's so smooth out there on the court, makes everything look so easy, sliding into his shot, taking the ball early, hitting these ridiculous one-handed half volleys when he's approaching the net and you get a ball at his feet, or he wants to just take a ball kind of on the rise to throw off your rhythm. He's just really coordinated. He's one of those guys who feels the ball really well around the court and then uses his momentum, uses his body weight to take the ball early, drive that ball through the court. And look, he recognized early on Novak doesn't have the weapons to hit through me. And if I am patient and disciplined, Novak will eventually leave a ball on the shorter side, not like a vulnerable shot, but he'll leave something for Karatsev to attack. And Karatsev was so disciplined at keeping the ball in the middle third of the court in particular, because you don't want to give Djokovic angles to work with, right? He is the most dangerous player in tennis history in the outer thirds of the court. His flexibility, his mobility, down the line, short angle cross court, deep cross court, you name it, he can do it when he's on the defensive. But that's where Karatsev, again, was so decisive moving forward and, keeping the ball in the center third of the court so that Djokovic didn't have angle to work with, so that when Djokovic would try to go for something, it would be a little bit forced. And that's when the ball would be left a little bit short and present Karatsev opportunities to attack. And again, his ability to take the ball down the line, cross court, doesn't matter. He can do a little bit of everything. And you look for Karatsev in his match against Djokovic, made 63% of his first first serves, won 63.5% of his first serve points, but most impressively, saved 23 of the 28 breakpoint chances he faced. Again, this is where if you're like Aslan Karatsev, 46-11, you've won 81% of your matches since August, you're going to be a little bit ballsy. You're going to be confident going for your shots, playing to win. Down break point, I don't care. I'm going to go big serve out wide, big forehand inside in, because that's what I have to do. It's if I'm on my back foot, if I play not to lose, I am going to lose to Novak Djokovic. And look, Djokovic's level got better and better, and he clearly didn't quite have his rhythm yet on the clay courts, and he just really is struggling. It's not as much absorbing pace. I think physically he does look good, and he looks comfortable moving, incorporating the drop shot, moving the ball around the court, but he is struggling to win points easily on serve. He's clearly struggling to, again, play +1 tennis. That's why he's incorporating so many drop shots to just try and get you off your rhythm, get you out of the center of the court, but Karatsev was really, really disciplined, and for 3.5 hours, he stood the test of the Novak Djokovic gauntlet, and you look on his return of serve, he won over 50% of his second serve points. He earned 16 breakpoint chances, which pales in comparison to the 28 Novak earned, but 16 breakpoint chances usually is going to get you the job done, and I mean, for Karatsev, it's just... And then for him to bounce back, he lost that first set to Berrettini so quickly, 6-1, and it looked like he was just checked out physically in that final. Looked like he had nothing left in the tank. And then he came out and broke Berrettini in Berrettini's first service game in the second set for a 2-love lead. And, that was I believe, the only break point. That was one of 2 break points. They might have traded break. Oh, they actually did trade breaks right away. And it was, again, he went down a break to Berrettini, got the break right back in the third set. I mean, look, that for Karatsev, who was clearly physically hurting, it didn't matter. He's such a great competitor, and he's feeling it right now. There's a reason Aslan Karatsev, you look at Tennis Abstract's numbers right now via ELO rating. Overall, Aslan Karatsev is currently number 11 by ELO rating, which, again, he's played like 6 weeks or 3 months now, I suppose, of ATP level events. A lot of that is based on his challenger success as well. You look for him from a clay court perspective. Aslan Karatsev, not quite a top 20 guy, but given his limited sample size that he's number 24 right now on clay court ELO ratings, speaks to the success he's had here early on. And then 2021, he's number 5 in ELO rating, and it makes sense. He's 20-5 here in this 2021 season. That's not far off the pace of the Tsitsipas's, Rublev's, and Djokovic, Nadal's of the world. And he's done it at the ATP level now. It's legit, folks. It's unlike anything we've seen in tennis history. And believe me, I've been racking my brain. I've seen similar jumps from, high-level challenger success into the top 30. But normally that guy is 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. They're not Aslan Karatsev, who's, of course, doing this now at, I believe, age what? I think he was born in 93. So, yeah, he's 27, turns 28 in September. It's ridiculous. And, he played a fantastic week of tennis, but shout out to Matteo Berrettini. 4th title for him in his career. Continues to prove hard court, clay, grass, doesn't matter. That big serve +1 forehand is going to be effective. It's going to transcend surface. He's now also quietly still 20-8 in his last 52 weeks. That includes a run to the round of 16 in the U.S. Open where he lost in 4 to Rublev. It includes a run, third round Roland Garros, he loses to qualifier Daniel Altmaier. That hurts a little bit, but you look at that year, he made Rome quarterfinals before losing 7-6 in the third to Casper Ruud. This year, he loses, close match to Bublik in Antalya, loses the final of ATP Cup to Medvedev, but beat Thiem, Monfils, and Bautista Agut at that event. Loses to Tsitsipas in the round of 16 at the Australian Open this year after he had to withdraw with injury and, didn't play between Australia and Monte Carlo because injuries have been a big part of his story of late. But for him to, make the decision, say, I'm not going to play Barcelona. I'm going to go play Belgrade. I'm going to go be a higher seed, give myself an opportunity to play a bunch of matches this week. Straight set wins over Cecchinato and Krajinovic, who was playing really well earlier in the week to get things started. And then, 3-set win over a very much in form and feeling himself Taro Daniel before a 7-6 in the third win over Karatsev. I thought Berrettini's backhand actually did look much improved this week. He was much in that Karatsev Karatsev match because Karatsev was playing park the bus. He was hitting everything to the Berrettini backhand corner. At some points, he was, rolling in his first serve 90 miles per hour, just making sure it went to Berrettini's backhand. And Berrettini got much more comfortable as the match went on, hitting through his backhand and just saying, okay, you know what? If you want to be patient and play to my backhand wing, I'll play that game with you. I'll play drives cross court, and then eventually I'm going to lull you to sleep and run around it and hit an inside out, inside in forehand combo or work in his slice as well. And he's a guy who slides out of his shot, not slides into them, but that's just because he's so freaking powerful, and his first step is effective on the clay as well. He moves well. The backhand looks better. He won over 80% of his first serve points for the week, which, of course, is going to be his calling card. He was only broken 3 times throughout the course of his 4 matches on the week. Berrettini was excellent. And it's just a reminder, he's going to be really good for a long time. Top 20 as long as he is healthy. His serve, his forehand, his athleticism, his creativity, his slice, his willingness to move forward, all of it works. And of course that, backhand return is attackable, and it's not the most dynamic game. What's plan B for Matteo Berrettini? Not as clear as some of the other top guys, but plan A is super effective, and plan B is getting better, as I mentioned. So great week for him, who you look at Tennis Abstract's ELO ratings right now. Berrettini feels a little undervalued, number 14 overall, behind it feels a little low for him to be behind Stan Wawrinka at this point, but you look via clay court ELO rating, Berrettini a little bit higher than that. He's at number 12. You look here in his yearly ELO rating, he's still going to be pretty low, right? Because he's only now won this first title, and he really hasn't played that many events, you'd think, but he's now up to number 8, 12-3 here to start the season. Again, it was the retirement in Australia that held him out more than anything. He's starting to play his best tennis. I mentioned that top 16 list. There are 6 men right now who are top 16 in both hold percentage and break percentage. Rafa, who is 5th in hold percentage and 2nd in return percentage, by the way. That's freaking nuts. You also have Djokovic, you've got Zverev, you've got Medvedev, you've got Rublev, and you've got Aslan Karatsev, who continues his success. And then for Novak Djokovic, again, it's 1 loss. I'm not concerned. He's starting to look better and better. You could tell he was not happy with himself to have lost that match on his home soil, on his stadium court, but if anything, that's just going to fuel the fire, and I am not concerned. Yes, Karatsev beat him in a 3rd set, but if that match had to go, 1 or even 2 more sets, I still think I like Djokovic on that occasion. So Djokovic knocked out, but certainly you look for him on Tennis Abstract's clay court ELO ratings. He's number 4 behind Tsitsipas. He's not going anywhere, folks. He is very much a threat come Roland Garros. And for Taro Daniel, shout out to him, 23-19 now in his last 52 weeks, makes his first ATP semifinal since back in 2018 when he lost to Daniil Medvedev in the Winston-Salem semifinal. Did just such an excellent job all week, scrapping out the matches he had to play. You look for him on the week in terms of the wins he was able to accumulate. He gets victories over Sosa, Millman, and Delbonis, the last 2 in 3 sets. Was able to bounce back after getting blitzed in that first set against Berrettini, but Berrettini just too much firepower in the end. But it was a really fun week of tennis in Belgrade, certainly considering we had a 500 level event going on simultaneously. It's a shout out to the players for delivering a high level performance, but that's enough on the ATP action. And by the way, this is why we're delivering you a 2-podcast Tuesday, because I knew I was going to go at least 30 minutes on the men, and I've got it, I would say probably another good 30 minutes here on the women as well. We'll start with the action in Stuttgart. Ashley Barty, folks, let's talk about numbers for her. And I know I mentioned some of these a little bit last week, but it's worth just mentioning them again because of how exceptional she has been. She is now 79-17, an 82% win percentage since the start of the 2019 season. She's 20-3 overall here in 2021. The victory in Miami, now the victory here in Stuttgart. She's also 17-3 on clay, since the 2019 season. And you look for Ashley Barty here this week. I mean, it was such a well-rounded performance. She, is able to win it says did she really win 100% of her first serves against Laura Siegemund? There's a chance that's true, and you look for Barty here on the week. In her 4 victories, she won 100%, 78.9%, 79%, and 72.2% of her first serve points. And you look for her, she was hovering around 46% on her second serve throughout the course of the week, and just she is one of, I mentioned the men's side. Let's look on the women's side. There are 6 women who are in, is it 6 or is it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 women who are in the top 16 in both hold and break percentage. Elisa Mertens, who ranks 16th in hold percentage, 9th in break percentage, and by the way, she's the WTA wins leader. It makes sense. I've been looking for a stat that would have her amongst the elite of the elite. She belongs in this conversation. All of these names do. Mertens is your wins leader. Iga Swiatek, 15th in hold percentage, 2nd in break percentage. She was a French Open champion. Aryna Sabalenka, who we'll get to in a second, is on this list. You also have Petra Kvitova, Garbine Muguruza, and Ashley Barty, who's 4th in hold percentage, 14th in break percentage over the course of the last 52 weeks amongst top 50 players in the women's game. And against Aryna Sabalenka, look, Sabalenka was having one of those weeks, and the speed of the indoor clay courts in Stuttgart were perfect for her game, and her athleticism means she can play her power tennis on clay courts and not worry as much as other power-based players because she's so comfortable moving on the surface. She's such a dynamic athlete, and when her first serve or her big aggressive returns are landing in the court, there's nothing her opponents can do. Case in point, Simona Halep, who hit Ekaterina Alexandrova off the court earlier in the week, who was exceptional in her first round win as well, and it just didn't matter because Sabalenka in the match hit through Simona Halep. She won 73.5% of her first serve points, but 81% of her second serve points. She didn't allow Simona freaking Halep to break her serve, and just, and she kind of ran out of steam against Ashley Barty, but that's just because Ashley Barty put so many balls in play, and she's gotten so much better on her two-handed backhand side, just driving through that ball, particularly on the return of serve. That has been one of her big improvements here this season. You look for Ashley Barty for her career, her break percentage 35.5. This season, it's 38.2%. It's because she's putting more returns in the court, and it's because she is just, again, her variety, her ability to get the ball deep, her ability to, the second you give her a forehand, whether it's to, flip the gears on you and go down the line and beat you to the spot, or continue to play cross court with you, or to go short angle, or to incorporate the drop shot and her comfort moving forward. She can just do a little bit of everything, and the numbers speak for themselves. We've talked about this before. The primes of the Federers and Serenas of the world, typically they're winning 80% or more of their matches. They're making 7-8 finals, or sometimes even exceeding 10. The best of the best are 10 to 15 finals. They're winning 4 to 8 titles a season. That's what Ashley Barty's been doing since the start of 2019. She has statistically started to put together the sort of resume the greats of the game put together in the early parts of their prime, and it just makes sense because, again, her athleticism transcends surface, much like Sabalenka's. The variety in her game just seems to work, frustrates opponents. She finds answers. She's able to find ways to stay alive in matches even when she's not playing her best, or even when her opponent is playing their best. Case in point, Aryna Sabalenka in that first set carried her form over from that Simona Halep match and was taken second and first serves early and just beaten Barty to the spot and playing aggressive, dictating tennis. And just, again, the match was on her terms, but Barty stood the course. She continued to get Sabalenka stretched and ultimately wore Sabalenka down. And again, for Ashley Barty, I mentioned the fact that she's one of those top 16 players in both categories. You look for ELO ratings now. Ashley Barty is currently number 2 behind Naomi Osaka, and it's only a 6-point gap between the two of them, which is about as small of a gap as you will find in ELO rating between two players, particularly two players at the top. But you look across the board, it's just because Naomi Osaka's ELO rating on hard courts is significantly higher, I suppose, than Barty's is right now. Barty's higher on the other two surfaces, and there's a big gap between the two of them right now. And number 3, Simona Halep, a relatively big gap. But she's number 2 on overall ELO rating. In terms of clay court ELO rating, Ashley Barty now, in terms of yearly ELO rating, Ashley Barty's number 1 here in this 2021 season. She is 19-3 overall on the year. That's third in wins behind Muguruza and Kudermetova. Obviously, you look for her in terms of clay court ELO right now. Ashley Barty trails just Simona Halep as the number 2. She has now surpassed Iga Swiatek with her result here in Stuttgart. And look, in her mind, she's the defending French Open champion. As I've said before, she won that 2019 event, didn't play last year. I would say her, Halep are my 2 favorites. I would say Iga Swiatek's just a slight notch below them because as excellent as she was last year, I need to see her repeat it again. But both Halep and Barty, and by the way, I'm not taking anything away from Simona Halep, who just got blitzed by Sabalenka, who I'm going to get to 1 second. By the way, Sabalenka 4th right now in overall ELO rating according to Tennis Abstract. But Barty, Halep, those are your 2 favorites entering the French Open. The faster clay courts work even better for Ashley Barty, but she's got the sort of weapons and athleticism again that even if you slow down the surface, it's not going to matter. She was fantastic this week. You look for her overall in her run to the title here. She's able to overcome the fact that she I believe dropped sets in her matches against Pliskova, Svitolina, and Sabalenka. Didn't matter. And that Svitolina match, by the way, absolutely delightful. And that's 2 matches in a row against Svitolina in Miami, and by the way, against Sabalenka in Miami as well. All of these players are in the mix. The margins between them very, very thin. Svitolina just not able to make points quite easy enough for herself. In particular, really needed to win that second set and had chances to do so. And she had the discipline to also stay the course with Ashley Barty. She didn't get frustrated by her slices. She didn't try to pull the trigger too soon. And again, I talked about it last week, but for Svitolina, her improvement on her first serve has afforded her a few more free points. It has allowed her to be a little bit more aggressive with her first shots, and she took her chances against Ashley Barty, but Barty she throws the kitchen sink at you. She's able to turn defense into offense, and then eventually, once you do wear down with her big first serve, with her +1 forehand, as I mentioned, she was winning about 77% of her first serve points on the week. She was sensational, and she deserved to end up in the winner's circle. You look for Ashley Barty now, and I may have just mentioned this earlier, so I apologize if I am repeating myself here, but you look at Tennis Abstract's ELO rating, she's number 2 overall behind Naomi Osaka. She trails her primarily in terms of their play on clay courts, in terms of their play on hard courts. The gap between them just a mere 6 ELO rating points. That's about as thin of a margin as you'll find between any 2 players in the ELO ratings. She, by overall ELO, again, trails only Naomi Osaka. In terms of clay court ELO rating, she's now surpassed Iga Swiatek. She's number 2 according to Tennis Abstract, trailing only Simona Halep. She's number 1 overall in 2021 ELO rating, and you look at her record overall here in 2021 now. Ashley Barty currently, I believe, on this season. Let's see here. What is her record? 19-3. That trails only Kudermetova and Muguruza, who have 20 and 21 wins respectively. Again, all the hoopla, I mentioned this on the Tennis Channel Live, so I'm not going to repeat the joke I made, but she belongs at the top of the women's game. She's a contender to win any event, and in my mind, and by the way, Simona Halep looked great this week. It was the indoor conditions. It was perfect for Sabalenka, who I'm about to get to, I promise. But for Ashley Barty, it's her and Halep. Those are your 2 favorites. Swiatek's a slight tier below, but Barty was that good. She belonged in the winner's circle in Stuttgart. All right, now quickly on Aryna Sabalenka, who I say it all the time. I'll say it again. When Jeff Sackman said it beautifully, when they induct the next member of Serena Williams' Power Tennis neighborhood, that person, he said it, Serena's going to find a key in the manager's office, the secret lock that opens the secret to all things power tennis, and that secret is going to be Aryna Sabalenka. And I mean, to watch her blitz through Simona Halep 6-3, 6-2. To watch her, I think it dropped the first game against Anett Kontaveit and then rip off 6 in a row in that third set. Just when she's clicking, she's going to beat anyone. And her power tennis was exceptional. I mean, against Halep, she won 81.3% of her second serve points. Against Simona freaking Halep. And in that first set against Barty, she raced out to a 6-3 lead and was playing on her terms and was taking the return of serve early, aggressive down the line, inside in with her forehand on the ad side, or even ripping big cross court through the ball on that ad side. It was all working for her. And again, the 3 sets she played, the 4 sets she played consecutively, 6-1 over Kontaveit in the third, 6-3, 6-2 over Halep, 6-3 over Barty in the first. That's the reason Aryna Sabalenka is currently number 4 on Tennis Abstract's ELO ratings, because her best tennis is as good as anyone on tour. And you look for her now, she's 35-11 over her last 52 weeks. You look overall in terms of, again, more granularly, there's a big word for you, at that 35-11 record. Overall, of those 11 losses, 10 of the 11 were in 3 sets. And, all of them except to Azarenka, Pegula, and I believe Coco Gauff, all of her losses except for Kaya Kanepi and Coco Gauff were against players who are either top 15 players or Jess Pegula and Ons Jabeur, who have been top 15 players over the past really 15 months. And I mean, again, 35-11, 10 of your 11 losses are in 3 sets. You have to be one of the best players in the world to beat her right now. And her last 5 losses, Barty, Muguruza, Serena, all of them in 3 sets. You either have to be the best player in the world to beat her, and even if you are the best player in the world to beat her, you are probably still going to have a 3-set match, because she's going to have 20 minutes where she just hits you off the court. And here's my comparison for you. Sabalenka, 13th in hold percentage, 16th in break percentage. Alex Zverev, 13th in hold percentage, 12th in break percentage. That's always going to be the parallel to me, because they're both players who for 10 to 15 minutes in every match, you're just like, why aren't you the best player in the world? Why don't you do this point in, point out? You are better than your opponent when you play your best. And yet, again, they haven't been able to do it 7 matches in a row at the Slam. They haven't always been able to do it in the biggest moments against the biggest opponents, but they're both so good. And this is why I continue, less so Zverev now, but Sabalenka, this is why I'll continue to bring her up, because her best tennis is that good, folks. She legitimately, she can out-hit anyone, and she out-hit Halep on clay. She out-hit Barty first set. Now, she ran out of steam, but she has gotten better and better, and it's going to happen. It's going to click. And I just hope I'm able to predict when it is going to happen correctly, because I'm down to be burned for the next 12 Grand Slams if on the 13th one I predict Aryna Sabalenka and it finally happens. She's got that sort of talent. She was spectacular this week in what was, again, an excellent weekend of tennis in Stuttgart. All right, just a couple things to touch on, and then we'll wrap this first episode here on Tuesday. Let's talk about the action in Istanbul. Sorana Cirstea earns her first title since 2008, second title of her career at the WTA level. She doesn't drop a set en route to her victory in Istanbul. You look for Cirstea throughout the week. It's not like it was a joke of a draw. It's not like it was some fluke sort of event. She beats young, talented Russian Anastasia Potapova. She knocks off a top 12 player in Tennis Abstract ELO rating on clay in Fiona Ferro. She then knocks off big-hitting Marta Kostyuk in 2020 WTA wins leader Elisa Mertens. all without dropping a set. You look at what went well for her. It felt like all week long, whenever her serve got broken, she was immediately able to bounce back. She could hit through these courts in Istanbul, and it felt like her the first set in 2 games of all of her matches, she would play extraordinarily aggressive, and it helps when you're winning those matches to maintain that aggression. But then that aggression hitting big down the line, big cross court. I thought the depth of her ground stroke more than anything else was the most impressive thing for the now 31-year-old, but for her in particular, then she started mixing in the drop shot, and she had a ton of success mixing in the drop shot against Mertens, who was doing her best to survive the first strikes of Kirstea and built a 5-2 lead in the final in that second set of the match. Kirstea ultimately a 6-1, 7-6 victory over Mertens, which followed up a 4-4 win, by the way, in the semifinal this weekend over Kostyuk. But, I mean, look, for Sorana Kirstea, you look overall in her career now for the 31-year-old. She's 20-11 overall in her last 52 weeks. That includes a win at 100K in Dubai, where she beat Krejcikova, Kochereta, Blinkova, Herzog, and Siniakova. She made quarterfinals in the Australian Open warm-up before losing to Ann Lee, beat Teague and Kvitova before losing to Vondrousova in the Australian Open. She's lost back-to-back matches, second round to Kontaveit in Dubai and Miami. Now she wins the title here in Istanbul. She is back to number 58 now in the rankings, and you look for her. That feels about right. Given that 2011, it's not a fluke run. I know that was a 100K title, but that list of players, Herzog, Siniakova, Krejcikova, Kochereta, Blinkova, it's nothing to sniff your nose at. That's nothing. That is a player who's starting to play her best tennis again. And, it started last year when she made third round U.S. Open, beat Konta, beat an in-form Mikhail, who had a big run at the Western and Southern the week before losing 7-6 in the third to Karolina Mukova. She followed that off, unfortunately, losses to Rybakina and Badosa. But she is right there. She's starting to play her best tennis. She's healthy, most importantly. And again, her firepower, it's legit, folks. She hit through Elisa Mertens, who, by the way, accomplished everything she wanted to this past weekend in Istanbul. She gets 4 matches under her belt. She's able to get a couple of good victories on the week over Siniakova, over Kudermetova, played a 3-set match early in the tournament as well. And look, her, she struggled. She just really couldn't find a way to hit through Kirstea, and got a little tentative in that second set. Although, of course, the way Kirstea was playing, I don't know what Mertens is supposed to do there. You try to be too aggressive, you're going to make some errors, and that's not what you want to do, because you feel like you can weather the storm against Sorana Kirstea, but you really can't right now. That's how confidently, that's how well she is playing. She earned the title. It was a great week for Mertens, though. Great week for Kudermetova, protected seed. Lost the match to Mertens 1-4, but Mertens just outplayed her. That happens from time to time. I don't think there's anything to be disappointed about. If you're Veronika Kudermetova, that was a fun and more competitive match than the 6-1, 6-4 scoreline reflected. Of course, for Marta Kostyuk, great result for her. Continued her ascent up the WTA rankings. You look for Kostyuk now with the semifinal. She is up into the top 80 of the WTA rankings. Marta Kostyuk right now currently sitting at, let's see, the WTA tab doesn't want to open for me, but when it does, it will tell me that Marta Kostyuk, and we're leaving all of this in because, again, it's a 2-podcast Tuesdays, up to a new career high of number 76 in the live rankings, which is where she belongs. I knew it was top 80. She's probably a little bit higher than that. That firepower, it's going to win her matches over her career, folks. And so you look for Marta Kostyuk, a phenomenal week for her, certainly overall in Istanbul, and I think the first of many. That power game, much like I talk about with Aryna Sabalenka, I don't know if she quite has the athleticism of Sabalenka, but it doesn't mean, when I say the athleticism, I mean the power, the size, just the way Sabalenka overwhelms you. But Kostyuk's ball is equally explosive, and it's going to be fascinating. She is certainly someone third highest ranked under 19-year-old on the WTA Tour. she's someone we're all locked in on, certainly, as she moves through the rest of this WTA season. With that in mind, let's talk about another young star rising right now in the professional tennis ranks. It's on the men's side, and it's a player we have spent so much time talking about here because his results have dictated that we do as much. Of course, I'm referring to 20-year-old Jenson Brooksby, who wins his second challenger title in the past 2 weeks, third challenger title on this 2021 season, as he ends up in the winner's circle. 4 3-set wins to earn the title on the green clay of Tallahassee. You look at the run for him. He knocks off fellow talented young American Martin Dahm, then beats number 1 seed Thiago Seyboth-Wild, who won an ATP title on clay last year, beats Michael Mmoh in 3 sets, Facundo Mina in 3 sets, then gets revenge over one of his few losses here this season, Bjorn Fratangelo, who beat him in the final of the Cleveland Challenger. Brooksby gets a 6-3, 4-6, 6-3 victory. And look, Damian Kust talked about Brooksby at length on today's Great Shot podcast, and I know, David Gertler and I talked about him at length on Thursday. We will certainly talk about him at length again this week. But for, Brooksby, 23-4, your last 4 challengers, you win South Africa, finals of Cleveland, you win Orlando, win Tallahassee, 4 vastly different surfaces, the altitude of South Africa, indoor hard courts in Cleveland, outdoor fast in Orlando, now green clay in Tallahassee. Some ridiculous numbers on Jenson Brooksby just via ELO rating right now, because I think all you guys will enjoy all these. And again, it contextualizes where he is at. Jenson Brooksby overall, not 2021 centric, overall, up to number 45 now in Tennis Abstract ELO ratings. You want to look just 2021 results centric. Brooksby number 26 on Tennis Abstract's ELO rating for this 2021 season. Jeff Sackman and I were texting back and forth. He made the joke. He's the hardcourt Sebastian Baez, who, by the way, is number 29 on the ELO rating. And you look at this grouping, it's a funny grouping. 25 let's just go from 24. 24 Popperin, 25 Munar, 26 Brooksby, 27 Bublik, 28 Schwartzman, 29 Baez, 30 Rusevori, 31 Fritz, 32 Thomas Mahak, or Matchak. I forget how to pronounce it. Anyways, that's a really fun list to be on. And Jenson, look, he's 24-3 in his last 52. It's like, I don't know what else you can say. And it's just, again, is there the big weapon, the glaring thing he does extraordinarily well? I would say yes. And it's his ability to compete, his ability to just stay on the court, make matches physical, put you in uncomfortable position, make that on the stretch backhand down the line or backhand cross court that you just don't expect him to get to, or hit that god-awfully ugly drop shot that is sneaky effective on his backhand wing. And just, again, his length, his first step, his anticipation, his ability to move the ball around the court. It's a sneaky heavy forehand, and he makes like 70% of his first serves, and he puts almost every return at a minimum in the court, and then says, all right, I've made it in the court. Now, can you beat me? And at the challenger level right now, the answer to that question is no. These players can't beat him, and that is the ultimate compliment you can give a 20-year-old, is that I now need to see you get pushed by the best players in the world because you're too good for the level of competition you're playing at, and I need to see more. And I'm not trying to put extraordinary amounts of pressure on Brooksby because, again, friend of the program here at CR, and, still only 20 years old, but he's ready to be pushed at the ATP level. That's what I'm trying to convey, is we've now seen it 3 consecutive months at the challenger level. In his ranking now, he's into the top 175 for the first time. Of course, I want to continue to see him excel at the challenger level, particularly in non-hard court events. And I still think there's a lot he needs to work on. That serve is going to get attacked, and the pace, depth of his usual rally ball, it's not overwhelming. If he's not careful, the players with big weapons on the tour, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to go for those balls down the line. And he doesn't have an overwhelming first step. He's not a ridiculously springy athlete. He's not a Tiafoe or a Tommy Paul type of athlete, but he anticipates so well. He's a comfortable mover. Certainly, it's more in the Nakashima mold of like it's never going to be an issue for them. And I want to see him pushed by the biggest weapons, and I want to see how he continues to play on non-hardcourt surfaces. But he's answered every question anyone had about him coming into the season. And, we definitely talked about it here at Cracked Rackets. Was it Korda, Nakashima, and Brooksby, or was it Korda, Nakashima, and now it's time to wait and see from Brooksby? Well, we know the answer. It's Korda, Nakashima, and Brooksby. Those are your next-gen Americans. You want to throw the Zane Collins, Martin Doms, Zach Sveideman at me. I'll accept those names as well. There's some names in college I also particularly like. Cannon Kingsley, Alex Kovacevic, of course, my boy, Will Blumberg. But, yeah, I mean, Jensen Brooksby, if you're making a list of talented young Americans who you're going to need to follow over the past decade, make sure he's on that list. Otherwise, respectfully, I don't think many tennis fans are going to take the list seriously. But with that in mind, by the way, Jensen Brooksby, one of the many players to have been signed up, I suppose, for college tennis to have earned an ATP victory. That was a poor segue. That segue won't earn me a return to Tennis Channel Live. But some good news we broke here at Cracked Rackets. We learned today that the NCAA Tennis Selection Committee has officially announced that they will deviate from their standard practices to select this year's field for the team and individual NCAA championships. Now, we will get into the details when Matt Stakoyak and Chris Halioris join me on this week's College Tennis Great Shot podcast episode, but just what they're going to be using this year. It's going to be the same foundational criteria: head-to-head, win and loss record, strength of schedule, common opponents, significant wins, eligibility and availability of student athletes, and by the way, criteria for both the team and individual events I'm talking about. But however, the committee is going to be able to identify those teams and individuals, aka the Big Ten, who might be adversely impacted by the lack of non-conference scheduling and therefore underranked, and place them within a recommended range. And